Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Vainam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of the Godhead Narayan, and to Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. I put it on me. Yeah, we're good. Thanks. Nasta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavat Yutamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. We're on text 26. Text 26, Chapter 6, Canto 2. Today's May 8th, 2020. May 8th. It's the birthday of Abhimanyu Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Todaroba. Yeah. Oh, Esrim Vesheva.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So text 26. Namadeyani.
Namadeyani.
Mantra.
Mantra.
Cha.
Cha.
Dakshina.
Dakshina.
Cha.
Cha.
Pratani.
Pratani.
Cha.
Cha.
Devata Anukrama.
Devata Krama.
Kalpa.
Kalpa.
Sankalpa.
Sankalpa.
Tantram.
Tantram.
Eva.
Eva.
Cha.
Cha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Namadehani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Namadehani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Namadehani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Devatanu karma kalpa.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha. Namadehani mantrascha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Devatanu Purnam kalpa.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Sankalpas tantram eva cha.
Sankalpas tantram eva cha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Sankalpas tantram eva cha.
Sankalpas tantram eva cha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Namadeyani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Vratani cha.
Devatanu krama kalpa.
Devatanu karma kalpa.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Sankalpas tantramiva cha. Namadayani mantrascha.
Namadhyani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vatrani cha. Devatanukramah kalpa. Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
This is text 26 of Canto 2, Chapter 6, Srimad Bhagavatam, if anyone else would like to recite the verse.
Namadhyani mantrascha.
Namadhyani mantrascha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Dakshinascha vratani cha.
Vatanukrama kalpa.
Devatanukama kalpa.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha.
Sankalpas tantrameva cha. Namadhyani,
Namadhyani,
invoking the names of the demigods.
invoking the names of the demigods.
Mantra,
Mantra,
specific hymns to offer to a particular demigod.
specific hymns to offer to a particular demigod.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Dakshina,
Dakshina,
reward.
reward.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and.
Vratani,
Ratani,
vowels.
vows.
Cha,
Cha,
and.
and.
Devata anukrama,
Devatanukrama,
one demigod after another.
one demigod after another.
Kalpa,
Kalpa,
the specific scripture.
specific scripture.
Sankalpa,
Sankalpa,
the specific purpose.
the specific purpose.
Tantram,
Tantram,
a particular process.
particular process.
Eva,
Eva,
as they are.
as they are.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Translation. Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes. Purport by His Divine Grace A.E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
What is recompense?
Recompense means like financial reimbursement. Yeah, like that. Some reimbursement of some resource. So Srila Prabhupada writes, the whole process of offering sacrifice is under the category of fruit of action, and such activities are extremely scientific. They mainly depend on the process of vibrating sounds with a particular accent. It is a great science, and due to being out of proper use for more than 4,000 years, for want of qualified Brahmins, such performances of sacrifice are no longer effective, nor are they recommended in this fallen age. Any such sacrifice undertaken in this age as a matter of show may simply be a cheating process by the clever priestly order. But such a show of sacrifices cannot be effective at any stage. Fruit of action is being carried on by the help of material science and to a little extent by gross material help. But the materialists await a still more subtle advancement in the process of vibrating sounds on which the Vedic hymns are established. Gross material science cannot direct the real purpose of human life. They can only increase the artificial needs of life without any solution to the problems of life. Therefore, the way of materialistic life leads to the wrong type of human civilization. Since the ultimate aim of life is spiritual realization, the direct way of invoking the holy name of the Lord, as mentioned above, is precisely recommended by Lord Chaitanya, and people of the modern age can easily take advantage of this simple process, which is tenable to the condition of the complicated social structure. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sugrajatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sakritam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Kopisha Kopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpati Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 26. Namadeyani mantrascha dakshinascha vrtani cha devatanu kramakopa sankopastan shameva cha. Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with a particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes. Hare Krishna. Yes. So Prabhupada describes this process as very scientific. And he refers to material science. Like modern material science it's aiming at the same thing, this promotion of karma, higher level of living. And then Prabhupada says, okay, but the modern material science, they have a ways to go to kind of grasp the more subtle process of material science, on which the Vedic hymns are established. Of course, the Vedic hymns, it's like material, but all geared towards the spiritual. Prabhupada, he mentioned he had a German godbrother. I mean, for the most part, Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples were all Indian body. But there was Prabhupada had a German godbrother named Sadananda Goswami. And even like in the 60s, when Prabhupada sent some of his students to Germany, they contacted Sadananda Goswami. And anyhow, so Prabhupada tells the story of this German godbrother that he was, very sincere. And then he looked at like in India and so many of the mystic processes, and he saw like the yoga mystic processes, like to become lighter than the lightest and smaller, this and then and the different mystic powers. He looked at it essentially. He goes, well, really, material science is doing that. Material science is doing that, like to become lighter and you can fly anywhere. Okay, so this was like in the 1920s and 1930s. So it's like, oh, okay, with airplanes, okay, and it becomes smaller and smaller, so with microscopes. And they said, really, material science is going there, maybe in a crude way. And he was seeing that all of these, Indian different processes, material science is doing it. And then that led him to see, so what's unique in the Vedas? What's unique in the Vedas? And that's bhakti. And then his sincerity brought him to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. So we might call this, whether it's this intricate system of rituals, demigod worship in the Vedas, or modern material science, we can refer to that as the culture of karma, meaning I will work and I'll have fruit of results and I'll have a higher standard of living and bigger house and more comforts. And in some sense, material sciences provide that. If we look, each now compared to 200 years ago, what technology has done and the comforts and things like that, washing machines, automobiles and things like that. So this is the advancement of the culture of karma. And so much of the Vedas is directed towards the same thing. Of course, when the Vedas do it, it's all kind of a trick to bring one ultimately to bhakti. Even in these demigod sacrifices, Vishnu, the transcendental personality of Godhead, always gets a share. So there's always some bhakti involved. And that's not the case in mundane material science. But essentially it's to expand karma and material comforts, the culture of karma, right? And then what happens when we expand material comforts and we just enjoy higher levels of living and comforts? We get sick of it. We get sick of it. Even even if we look at, okay, someone who works hard and has the nice everything and, has all the amenities of modern, postmodern life. Okay, then oftentimes the idea of a vacation is I want to go to the woods and live simply, right?
Retreat.
I want to go on a retreat. Yeah, I'll go to the Gainesville Retreat Center and hike in the woods, something like that. Okay, because what's the idea? It's less like just like more enjoyment. I can go to the refrigerator. I have 250 TV channels to choose from. I just get sick. Just get sick, right? Like, I need to escape from this. I want to escape from this. So that escape tendency, we can call that in Vedic terms, the culture of Jnana. The culture of Jnana. Like, no, let's detach from just this enjoying matter. Let's detach from it. The culture of Jnana. And in societies throughout human history, we can see waves of the culture of karma and the culture of Jnana. We can see that in individuals, including ourselves, and in social movements. Now, the thing about the culture of Jnana, though, we can, in one sense, the idea is to detach from matter. So that's, in a sense, that's an encouraging direction. That's an encouraging direction. And it's a simple, like, if we look in the Shastra, in the Vedas, Jnana, it's combined with Vairagya, Jnana Vairagya, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Rupujita Jana Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chaita Hitukam. By serving Krishna, Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, the transcendental personality of Godhead, then one naturally achieves realized knowledge and detachment from matter. Tat Shradadana Munayo, Jnana Vairagya, Jnana Vairagya. See, they go together. Knowledge and detachment. Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya. Pashantyat Mani Tatmana Bhakti Shrutakritaya. The humble student or sage, by virtue of knowledge and detachment from matter, realizes the different phases of the absolute by engaging in bhakti according to the authorized process coming from the Vedanta Sutra. So when you have the idea of like the culture of Jnana, the culture of let's escape from matter, without actual vairagya, it actually becomes quite a decadent situation. And it becomes even, because it's artificial, it becomes even lower than the culture of karma, because there's not the discipline and the precision and the structure that's there in the culture of karma. Well, I'm thinking there was in the early days of Prabhupada's movement in the West, it was in Boston, maybe 68 or so, 1968. And so it was like time of the Vietnam War and protests, and there was a lot of protests. And the disciples at one point asked Prabhupada, so whose side are we on? Are we on the side of the police or the protesters? And Prabhupada responded, the police and the protesters are both on the same side. They're both on the same side. They're both on the side of sense gratification. Because even though in one sense the police and the establishment represents the culture of karma, enjoy matter with higher and higher level of comfort, and the hippie protesters represent the culture of jnana. But the hippie protesters, there's no vairagya there. There's no detachment from the enjoying spirit. So it's like, okay, so this one, let's fight about it. We enjoy with our beer and we enjoy with our joint. Okay. We have sex in the forest. We have sex in our 3-room villa, 3-bedroom villa. Okay, essentially, it's the same. So through material science or the Vedic science of ritual and sacrifice, the idea is advancement of comforts, advancement of culture of karma. In the 1950s, before I was born, there was one huge international company. I think it was DuPont. So their advertising slogan was better living through chemistry. Okay. So then a decade later, the culture of Gyan commandeered the same, it was the kind of tongue-in-cheek comic. They commandeered the same slogan in the 1960s. He gets it. Yeah, it's a good thing. From Super Soul, you understand what I'm talking about.
So.
Yes, better living through chemistry.
Prophet was a chemist.
Yeah. Because, it was, they would synthesize all sorts of hallucinogens. LSD was particularly popular, still is, from what I understand. So, okay, but the idea is, okay, material sense enjoyment through chemistry, whether it's through DuPont or whether it's through Owsley Laboratories. I don't know if everyone's following my connections here, but okay. So that's why Bhakti is a different culture. Bhakti it's transcendental to the boga of culture of karma, and it's transcendental to the tyaga, the artificial tyaga of the culture of jnana. Bhakti is transcendental. It's trans-empirical because it's not escapism. It's not like I'm sick of this material thing. I'm sick of this material enjoyment because I have some sense, which is a good sense, that it causes more misery than pleasure. In the name of pleasure, it causes more misery. An example we often use is in around the year 1900, the turn of the century, from the 19th to 20th century, the big debate around environmentalism was in whether to develop this new invention called the horseless carriage, the automobile. And the staunch environmentalists, they were strongly advocating to develop this new thing called the horseless carriage, the motor car, because it would eliminate the planet of the problem of air pollution. So that was the environmentalists' stance. Because the horses in the big cities in London and Philadelphia and New York, the horse manure was causing some lung problems and things like that. So this horseless carriage would solve the problem of air pollution. Just an example of the Maya Sukhaya principle, the illusion of happiness. If we look at the last 120 years, the automobile really hasn't done that much to eliminate the problem of air pollution, if we look at it. So, Bhakti, it's not escapism. It's not like, let me just detach from the senses. No, it's trans-empirical. We might say, because it utilizes the senses in a transcendental way. It's trans-rational, trans-cognitive, right? It includes and transcends all the attempted benefits of the culture of karma, the culture of jnana. we perform bhakti, naturally we realize who we are as not the body, as spirit, soul. And then naturally, naturally the soul gets a higher taste, not by escaping, but by engaging the mind in serving the Sankirtan movement, by engaging the senses in preparing and tasting prasada, in working hard in devotional service. That's what it's a transcendental process, and transcendental to the culture of Jnana, to the culture of karma. It doesn't reject karma and Jnana, it includes them and transcends them. This is special about this transcendental, eternal, universal culture of bhakti. Universal because it's the universal nature of all spirit souls. Nityasita Krishna Prema Sajika Bunai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karye Udai. This love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. And by this process of hearing and chanting, as Prabhupada is stressing in all these purports, that natural love of Krishna, that culture of bhakti naturally flowers, blossoms, and awakens. And yeah. So that's why Srila Prabhupada, Shukadev Goswami, these realized devotional souls, they're asking us to look at to look at the quality, what's the essential quality of our activities. Prabhupada would give so many examples, like, okay, so the dog runs on 4 legs, and we run on 4 wheels. Okay, we have 4 wheels. So Prabhupada said, so is that progress? No, that's not progress. The essential quality of the activity is the same. Yes, so dog, cat, pig sleep wherever they can find outside. We sleep in a nice house. Tiger defends with its claws. We defend with by paying taxes to a government who has thermonuclear devices, or we defend with our rationalizations and our denials and our clever defense mechanisms. Okay, so Bhagavatam's asking us to take a look qualitatively. Are we being dvipada pashu, simply 2-legged animals, the essential activity of animals, eating, sleeping, mating, defending? And yeah, so so if we do that simply in the context of a so-called sophisticated culture of karma, then it's qualitatively the same as the pig or the tree. So Bhagavatam's really asking us to take a look. What's the aim? What's the purpose of our activity? What's the purpose? And so in the verse, it talks about purposes. And Prabhupada writes, since the ultimate aim of life is spiritual realization, the direct way of invoking the holy name of the Lord as mentioned above is precisely recommended by Lord Chaitanya. And the people of the modern age can easily take advantage of this simple process, which is tenable to the condition of the complicated social structure. So this set of verses is referring to a process that's part of the culture of karma that leads to ultimately Brahman realization, then super soul realization, Bhagavan realization, but it's not tenable to the condition of today's social structure. It's not practical. It's not practical. So Prema Pumar Tovo Mahan, so that Lord Chaitanya is talking about the 5th and ultimate goal of human life. Dharma Pojita Kortitra Parmoni Matsagadam Satam Vejam Vastavam Machavastu Shivam Tapo Triangulam. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with completely rejecting all so-called religion with material motivation. This Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth, which is understood by those devotees who are completely pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. So cheating religion, koitava dharma, that's in one sense, that's what's described in the verse. It's religion that's religion or so-called spiritual or yoga process that's geared towards increasing kama, increasing material enjoyment. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And then again, when we're exhausted with material enjoyment, then we want to liberate from it. Culture of gyan. And so the Bhagavatam says, no, we're just transcending. We're just piercing through and transcending that cycle. Piercing through and transcending that cycle, and giving the real goal of all these processes. And the real goal is pure, loving, devotional service. Pure, this bhakti. Bhakti, it's the essence of all genuine spiritual teachings, the teachings of Jesus. Even Shankaracharya, the great impersonalist acharya, if someone really studies him sincerely and closely, really what he's wanting is Bhaja Govinda, Munamate. He says, kind of on his deathbed, as he's leaving, my foolish disciples, just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda. And he's the chief of all the impersonalists, the genuine impersonalist sampradaya. And Shankaracharya, he wrote a bhajan called the Govinda Mastakam. It's like these 8 amazing verses about the pastimes of Krishna, Mother Yashoda. So that's coming from Shankaracharya. So this bhakti is the ultimate goal there. And
Gita Mahatmya.
yeah, the Gita Mahatmya, yeah. And so Hare Krishna. Yes. So in this process of bhakti, that we're not really concerned about the details of these rules and regulations. As you can see in each purport, Prabhupada's bringing us back to Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam kalam, Nastave, Gatyanyata. That particularly in this age, the process of bhakti is the goal in all ages. And iti shadashkam nam nam kalikamashanasham, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So it's described that this Maha Mantra, it's particularly recommended in this age for self-realization and God consciousness. This Maha Mantra is supremely powerful in all ages. It's just that in this age, nothing else is viable. Nothing else is tenable, to use Prabhupada's words here. In other ages, one could do these ornate, opulent processes. One could meditate for 60,000 years. Now those processes aren't possible, but even in the other ages, all those processes lead to chanting Hare Krishna, chanting the names of God. Nam Nama Kribo, Nijasam Shakti, Tetrapitanyam, Tesmarani Nakala. Ektadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mama Pitor Devami Drishami Hajanina Nuraga. So Lord Chaitanya says God has hundreds and thousands and millions of names. Prabhupada would emphasize that, okay, you don't prefer to chant Hare Krishna, so chant the name of the Lord in a tradition that you resonate with. Chant the name of Allah, chant the name of Jesus, chant the name of Buddha, like that. All the names of God are transcendental and will purify the heart. And there is something especially intimate about the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's another discussion. Like that. So it's not about, so bhakti is not dependent on these rules and regulations. At the same time, in the spirit of avoiding the pitfall of niyamagraha, we do accept rules and regulations that will support us in the process of bhakti. And we get we get a clear concept of what those principles will be for us from our current link to the Parampara Srila Prabhupada. We don't need to speculate. So sure, bhakti, it's an affair of the heart. It's not dependent on any external rules and regulations. Still, if we check ourselves out, we might find I'm not 24 hours per day just spontaneously just in love with Radha Krishna. I got some other agendas going on. So for me to go in that direction, yes, there's the process of sadhana bhakti. And it's described anukulyasa sankalpa, patikulyasa varjanam. The essential principle is to accept everything that will support us in developing true Krishna consciousness and reject that which won't support us. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vi smartavya najatuche. All the rules and regulations, including like, let's rise early and sing samsara dava nalaliri daloka chanayaka, 16 rounds per day, consume only prasadam. They're all meant to bring us to the essential activity of the soul. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he cautions us, achihara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha, that there are certain ways of being, certain behaviors that will interfere with our progress. One of them is to collect too much, which can mean just to collect too many knickknacks in the house, too much stuff in our car, and then it's just like, then I got a cluttered filing cabinet, and that's because I got a cluttered mind, right? My filing cabinet, my office, my broken cassette players, they're reflections of my mind, okay? Atihara can also mean collecting too much in our belly. That's not helpful. I collect too much in my belly, and then I need to have a 3-hour nap, Prabhupada would say, before he would take rest. For a period of OD, we could say sleep, but sleep implies ignorance. So a period of OD, even when they're resting their body, they're completely Krishna conscious. And even the motivation for resting the body isn't like, oh, I like to sleep. But the motivation, because I'm enthusiastic to use this body for Krishna service. It's Krishna's body. So Prabhupada, when he would go to take rest, he would sometimes say, now I'm going to waste time. That's the consciousness of a devotee. Doesn't want to waste a moment outside of Krishna consciousness. Avyartha kalatvam, doesn't want to waste a moment outside of Krishna consciousness. And prajalpa means to gossip, just to utter and hear vibrations that are not geared to self-realization. Gossip, prajalpa, nonsense, blah, blah, blah. Shoktavyadani raja jnanam shanti sahasrasha pashatamana matatvam griyashu griya medinam. Shukadeva Goswami, right at the beginnings of his teachings to Maharaj Parikshit at the beginning of the second canto, describes that, those who are dedicated to the culture of karma, either whether shastrically or non-shastrically, they got thousands of topics. Sahasra, Shotavyadani Rajuja, Vinam, Shanti Sahasra, thousands of topics to talk about that just entangle them further in the sex desire and misidentification of the self with matter, and that was before the internet. So now this would be tens of millions. We could click on so many links, and practically all of them are just complete nonsense, waste of time. I don't need to tell you that, right? And so, of course, the internet can be used in Krishna service, and that's an important principle here. The principle of vairagya. Yukta vairagya. This is not, bhakti is not escapism. It's not a process of elimination. It's a process of transformation. We're talking about different sciences here. Narada Muni says to his disciple Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, Narada Muni says, Idam pumsas tapasa shutasya sutasya sviktasya chabudi datteo avichu torta kavibir nirupito yaru tamashloka gunan varnanam. So Narada Muni specifically saying that don't reject chemistry. We can have better living through chemistry. Don't reject chemistry. Narada Muni is saying the perfection of physics, chemistry, poetry, art, psychology, social work, politics, economics, anthropology. He's listing all these sciences. The perfection of that is to use them for the glorification of the Supreme Personality of God. Uttamashloka, it's a name for Krishna. Uttamashloka. Shloka, that's like each verse is called a shloka. Each verse of Bhagavad Gita. Each verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it's a shloka. And tama means ignorance. Ut means ultimate or beyond. Ultimate, beyond, transcendental. So uttama means transcendental to ignorance. Uttama, transcendental to ignorance. And so the ultimate, Krishna is Uttama Shloka. He's glorified by the most transcendental verses of the Vedas. And so Narada Muni is saying, no, all fields of human endeavor, utilize them in this bhakti yoga process, and that's their perfection. You could say that's our endeavor, our attempt with anything we're doing, in terms of like Sattva Tov, that to show that things like coaching, psychology, leadership training, transformational seminars, not just that these things can be used in devotional service. I mean, that's there, but more than that, but that in all these fields, anything that's valid in them finds their origin, perfection, and completion in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in Prabhupada's teachings. Another item that's unfavorable is niyamagraha, which means to whimsically neglect rules and regulations that can help us on the path towards pure devotional service. And another meaning of niyamagraha that's also interferes with our progress is to blindly accept rules and regulations and follow them and kind of missing the forest because of the trees. And so we want to be conscious. This process does not encourage blind following. We want to be conscious, like understand, okay, so how come I'm getting up so early? How come I'm chanting this mantra? How come I'm vegetarian and eat only prashan? How does that relate to this goal? Right? So everything's scientifically explained. Just like in a scientific experiment, like from what I understand, like for some, very precise experiments in physics, they can't even do it in a laboratory, like in a big city. Like they might need to be like in the desert far away so that there's no vibrations. So, but in any experiment, chemistry, physics, biology, right, they need to arrange the set and setting. And in order for the experiment to be valid and reliable. So similarly, so of course, a wonderful thing here, Chaktva Sadharma Bhajaranam Bhajamahir, Bhajana Pakota Patetato Yadi. Yatrakvala Bhajama Buddha Mushikim, Kvartarta Bhajatam Sadharmata. Narada Muni says, whatever we do in the culture of karma, what's the use? It's all going to be destroyed anyway, today, tomorrow, 100 years. But whatever progress we make in bhakti, what's the loss? That's for eternal gain, as Krishna described in Bhagavad Gita. Neha bikramo nashoste pachyavayurna vichite svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate matobhaya. Krishna says in this process of the transcendental process of bhakti, there's no loss or diminution. It's our eternal benefit. Meaning, even if we don't have this set and setting exactly adjusted or even nearly adjusted, we chant Hare Krishna even once in a lifetime. That's for eternal benefit. The process is effective. Still, like if we're encouraged by the saints and sages of the Bhakti tradition, give 100%. Don't withhold. Give 100%. In this, even if you give a fraction of 1/10%, that's auspicious. That's wonderful. But give 100% so that you're not forced to take birth. You're not forced to be embarrassed and degraded to take birth in a material body again. Make this your last forced birth. Give 100%, full self-realization, full Krishna consciousness. And then for that, okay, then it requires, for the conditioned soul to come to that point in these 80 years we have, 60 years, 40 years, 100 years. Yeah, it's then for that, then we need to be rigorous about following regular principles about diet and about, to stay away from intoxication. We're already in so many layers of illusion. So to add more layers of intoxication, more illusion, that won't help. So there's different regular principles. It's like the set and setting of an experiment that make the experiment, that accelerate us in our progress. And the foundation, in a sense, the foundational aspect of the experiment is this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This verse reads, Nama Deyani Mantrascha Dakshinascha Vratani Cha Devatanu Krama Kalpa Sankalpas Tatrameva Cha. Other necessities include invoking the different names of the demigods by specific hymns and vows of recompense in accordance with a particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your presence. I welcome questions or comments. Ramachandra.
Jai, Hare Krishna, everybody. Yeah, I wanted to start from appreciating how you said that differentiation between us and the animals is sometimes so not apparent.
Okay.
Being immersed in materialistic activities, and really that's kind of what I got from you. That's the only difference is ultimately bhakti.
Yeah.
That's the only difference, and how Sadananda was pointing it out too from the technological perspective. That's really the only superpower that cannot be achieved materially. And I was like, my question is, because yesterday we read actually, and we started reading the longest verse in the Bhagavatam about the processes of Bhakti Yoga. And just before we entered to what are these processes, actually Prabhupada gave a huge introduction in the purport. And at the end saying that karma and bhakti appear to be sometimes the same. Like there's no, externally they might appear.
Yeah, they could look similar. Yeah.
They can look very similar.
Yeah.
And my question.
Which purport was that?
That was the chapter we started reading on Narasimha's appearance day. So that's 7th canto, 5th chapter.
Text 23, 24.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
23.
Got it. Yeah, so karma and bhakti look real similar.
Yes. They appear to be externally similar, like we work, everyone works, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering, my question is what is what would you say is the obvious difference for you, for someone who practices bhakti, someone who is there in the process, what would be the difference?
Well, I mean, thanks for your comment and question, Ramachandra Prabhu. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I mean, as it says, so the distinguishing factor of human life is atato brahma jigyasa, that to inquire now that we've achieved the human form, now we can inquire about spirit. We can ask questions of, well, what happens at the time of the death of the body? Is there Is there God? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I suffering? That was Sanatan Goswami's question when he approached Lord Chaitanya. And if we're not asking those questions, then it's like glorified animal life. It's a sort of intellectual animalism. Yes, and so Prabhupada gives a simple example in relation to your question. It's about consciousness, that someone could be hammering and building a house, and it's karma. If it's just like, this is house for me and my family to enjoy, place for eating, sleeping, mating, defending, this is my house, then it's karma. And then next door, there could be someone doing the same activity, hammering a nail, but the consciousness is, wow, I'm constructing a temple for the Lord. And maybe even it's like, yeah, me and my family are going to live here. But this is just like our Bhakti Nan Christofferson at one point a few years ago. She has a very nice house in Melrose, Florida. And at one point she decided she's going to transform the master bedroom to the master's room. And the master bedroom in her nice villa, she just made, this is Krishna's room. This is for Radha Krishna. Right? So, okay, so now let's say, so if she's paying the electric bill, that's bhakti. Paying the electric bill. So Krishna is comfortable and enjoying in his room. Whereas if someone else in Melrose is paying their electric bill or getting their roof fixed so that they can have parties with alcohol and just mundane dancing, so it might look like, well, it's the same thing. They're both paying the electric bill and getting their roof fixed. Well, it's not the same thing. To ignorant eyes, it looks like the same thing. But with the eyes of knowledge, Jnana Chakshush, say, no, one is doing bhakti and one is doing karma. Now, of course, within karma, there's karma that is elevating. It's not bhakti, but karma that's elevating. And then there's what Bhagavad Gita calls vikarma. That's really degrading one towards animal species. So if one is doing karma, kind of as described in this verse, according to the Vedas, then that karma will eventually lead to bhakti. Yad karoshi yadashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yad tapasyasi kantiya tat karusha madarpanam. Krishna describes a lot about karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. And karma yoga, it's a continuum, and the perfection of karma yoga, the completion, is pure bhakti. It's pure bhakti. And so not all karma is karma yoga. Yoga is where, okay, we're doing karma, it's maybe not in the spirit of bhakti, but we're making some progress towards self-realization and towards God consciousness and love of God. As we said, just like the whole demigod worship thing described in the Vedas, it's a form of the karma kanda. It's a form of karma yoga, and Vishnu gets a share, so there's progress towards transcendence. But then if we're doing karma and it's not according to any sort of regulations, then it's what's called vikarma. Then it's just toxic, and then that would be like we're really misusing the human form of life. We're telling the universe, we're telling Krishna, we're telling the demigods, I don't deserve the human form of life because I'm just so reckless and whimsical. Then when the soul leaves the body, then we'll lose the chance of a human form, and we'll be more constrained in a tighter prison cell called a lower species.
And is it possible, while we dovetailing, like while we accessing our bhakti, with all this karma around us, is it possible to be misled by, well, I'm doing this for Krishna, but actually it's like all karma again, without even our awareness?
Yeah, of course that danger is there. Like it could be just like, okay, well, yeah, kind of my psychophysical nature is to like do business like that, but I'm a devotee. I'm a devotee. So we've seen examples like that. So the idea is just like, yes, I'm going to develop this business and that business, and right now right now I'm not organizing any programs. I'm not chanting rounds now, and sometimes I go to restaurants and I don't really offer my food anymore. But I'm gonna make $30 million and then use it all for Krishna. I'm gonna use it all for Krishna, and then it can be a sort of, the idea is to go in like a pin and come out like a plow.
Mm-hmm.
But then that becomes like go in like a pin and never come out. Or in another example, my nature is like to be an intellectual, So again, like, I'm not like, I haven't come to Mangalarti or programs. I'm not doing kirtan anymore in my house or anywhere. I'm not chanting rounds. But no, I'm gonna get my PhD. I'm gonna get my PhD, and then I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it for Krishna. And then 20 years later, there's no using it for Krishna. You're just, I've seen many examples. Like I've seen people like go in because it's their karma, psychophysical. They go into the university system, which can be used for Krishna consciousness. I hope so. I've seen people go into university and become completely lost. They become against Prabhupada. I've seen really painful examples. But Bhakti Yoga Retreat, raised hand.
I wanted to share, thank you for your class, and I wanted, to appreciate that I have seen also a lot of people becoming bewildered with like kind of delusioning themselves with, I'm doing that for Krishna, but behind it there is a different agenda to fulfill. And at the same time, if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3 and 5, chapter 3 is Karma Yoga, and sometimes Prabhupada equates the two. So there is a purification happening with that. Because in the chapter 3, you say, okay, do whatever you do, and maybe even you're not doing it for Krishna. However, just give the result, give the money you get, give it to Krishna. And that by itself is purifying. It's not pure Bhakti Yoga, but that karma where I give away some of it, and there is a purification. And then in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is a karma yoga in Krishna consciousness where Prabhupada, like he said, there is a fine line, and sometimes it's even the same thing, where I do whatever I do, and I do it for Krishna. And in that, it's not anymore giving the result to Krishna, it's giving the act itself to Krishna. And at the same time, it is the same and it is distinct from Bhakti, pure Bhakti.
Yeah.
Because there is some karma still involved. Yeah.
Thanks very much for that, Malini. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
What is the test you promote for that being for Krishna?
What's that?
What is like the test, the ultimate test? Is it, am I doing it for Krishna, or am I doing it to prolong my material existence?
Well, we can palena prachiyate, or as Jesus said, we can judge a tree by its fruits. What's the fruits in my own heart? Am I developing enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness? Am I developing deeper trust in the process, deeper trust in Prabhupada's teachings? Like sincere followers of Prabhupada, what's their feedback for me? If I measured against what Prabhupada describes, then are the results pleasing for Srila Prabhupada? Or am I becoming more and more discouraged, apathetic about practicing bhakti? And so like if we're honest, then we can see, like, is this bearing the fruits that bhakti bears? And to surround ourselves with caring people who can help us see our blind spots there. Other comments and questions? Bhakti George.
Hare Krishna, David. Thank you for your class, and thank you, Marie, for pointing out to give up the results of our actions as like a remedy, I guess. My question regards any specific guidance or advice, I would say, for individuals who are going into university system to be more like pins and plow and coming out like plows rather than getting stuck. So often I feel like the interaction is so karmic in there, like everything is based on results, getting grants, getting whatever we're doing is so much stress on result, and so much of the like it's dog life, like we've mentioned before, where it's just striving for results and then begging, for scraps. So my question is more like, because I have some understanding of giving up the results, and I'm trying to practice it, and then chanting Hare Krishna, obviously, I feel like is super helpful. But is there anything else, I guess, that one might recommend for making it out, like not getting stuck in, I guess?
Well, I don't know that I have anything new. I'll emphasize, your response to yourself. Be rigorous about chanting at least 16 rounds per day, and steadily read Prabhupada's books. And that can be especially challenging because in the university atmosphere, I got physiology books to read. I got the names of 400 muscles to memorize. I've got so many books to read from this course, and I need to keep up on the dental journals and things like that, right? So there's so much to read, and just like, whatever, I'm reading Bhagavatam systematically, and I'm going to participate in discussions on Bhagavad Gita. And then we might think, well, how's that connect with using it? Because by chanting and reading Prabhupada's books, that's the two pillars. There's others, like, okay, get up for morning program. And, I know in my university days, which was also when we were raising 2 children and things like that. But, so I was relatively weak at morning program and like that. And, chanting Hare Krishna at least 16 rounds per day, studying Prabhupada's books religiously, regularly, then that connects us with Super Soul. And then whether we're on Wall Street, or we're in dental school, or we're developing a coaching practice, or we're facilitating a personal growth seminar or university, then we're connected, or at least reasonably connected with the with Super Soul inspiration of how to respond to the context of this culture of material knowledge. And it's really the culture of karma, not the culture of gyan, because it's about enjoying material nature more. How to respond to that context in a way where I maintain and strengthen my own spirituality, and somehow I'm an instrument to awaken others. And especially in an environment like that, because it's a heavy environment. It's a heavy, and university can be like a lot heavier environment than, let's say, if someone is in downtown of a city with all the hustle and bustle and the bars and the prostitutes and things like that. Because that can be like, well, that's obvious Maya, so I need to be on guard. But university, it's like the people are intelligent, and it's nice buildings, and there's places to walk, and everyone's educated. So we can say, like, this is sophisticated. This is actually quite spiritual, because it's not like the rough, externally ugly form of Maya. It's insidious. And that's why Prabhupada, as you know, he sometimes refers to modern universities as slaughterhouses. And they could like really catch us unaware. I saw a video not too long ago. It was back 28 years ago. I was I spent 6 months or so teaching Gurukul, day school, not overnight. And so I met one of my students who was even a pre-adolescent at the time, or just entering teen years. And then he was so bright. And then he chose to practice Bhakti yoga. And I somehow saw a video in my search of internet that wasn't particularly purposeful, but I landed there. And then, yeah, so he's probably about 40 years old now. And he went through university, and now he just has a completely cynical attitude towards Bhakti and Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada. Not just cynical, even worse. I wouldn't even say the details. It was very sad because his idea was go into university and then use it for the Sankirtan movement. And he just got spun around, and he doesn't know he got spun around. He just thinks that now he's thinking clearly. He has a master's degree in philosophy, things like that. So it can be a very insidious, deceptive environment. And that's why we need to powerfully take shelter in those pillars that Prabhupada gave us, his books and chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then we have more of a chance to be guided by Super Soul, how to respond to that environment in a way that's conducive for spiritual life. I think most here know a little bit my own story. You know, I that was definitely still is part of my life to utilize academia in Krishna's service. And so I mean, in master's, I was going to evening master's degree school, MSW, Masters of Social Work. And I just wanted to, we were doing some really boring, uninteresting paper on community development. It was a course on community development. The professor was Professor Jerry O'Connor. And it was talking about different social, political structures. And so I integrated into my thesis, into my paper, the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam says a lot about political diplomacy and things like that. Jerry O'Connor, he was in his mid-60s at the time, it was 1994. And so he announced the whole class. He said, you have a genius here. And he was referring to me. It was very embarrassing. It's actually very embarrassing. But then he called me. He said, because he'd been a professor for 35 years and he never saw a paper that brilliant. And it was good because like Purnarku Dunodita, that this Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun. So in his language, so I know like I'm not brilliant or things like that, but whatever. I was chanting my rounds. I was reading Prabhupada's books. And so I got some inspiration how in that, and so I was doing that in all the papers. And in terms of be, do, have, like in some ways I was being a servant of Prabhupada and I was doing my papers in that mood. And then it ended up, Jerry O'Connor and the others, they really wanted me to do a PhD. I had no plans to do it. And also because there was no off-campus program on Gainesville, it wasn't really convenient. So they not just said that like you won't have to pay tuition, but they actually they gave me like $50,000 to do a PhD, like each semester. So it was a real be do have, and because they said like you have so much to offer to the profession like that. And so they really made it. They gave me the top university fellowship, and it's all because I was. In all my papers, I was integrating Prabhupada's teachings in their language in a way that did not sound preachy, but that was it. And they were just saying, we've never seen anything like this. This is radical, this is revolutionary, and it's so deep. And then so then I was doing my, I will go to too many stories, but anyhow, it was definitely some super soul inspiration that I got to do the Vedic personality inventory. And then I was thinking like what to do for my dissertation, and I just wanted to do something that I could do, get the degree, and then I'll use it for Krishna. I was in Maya. I was in Maya, and just like I could take some body of statistics on foster care parenting and crunch them based on gender and race, and I could do it and get my degree, and then I'll use it for Krishna. So my major professor was Dr. Neil Abel, And it was time to like, okay, what are you gonna do for your dissertation? And he'd already guided me through doing the Vedic personality inventory. And I decided I'd just like something to get the degree. And then, so I was just admired. But he was clearly Krishna's mouthpiece, Prabhupada's mouthpiece. And he said, no, I'm not going to support you in that. No way. I'm only going to support you if you do something you're passionate about. So I was like, oh my God, he's challenging me. Oh my God. And then he said something to the effect of, he said, I've seen you like walk around campus holding some piece of cloth and mumbling. You seem passionate about that. I go, yeah, I like to hold a piece of cloth and mumble something, yeah. Well, what's that about? So I said, well, that's the mantra. It's an ancient mantra. He goes, well, you should do your dissertation on that. So I was in Maya, but I could very clear, like, Neil Abel is connected with Supersoul. Neil Abel's connected with Supersoul. I thought, and it was, in terms of a social science dissertation, it was quite sophisticated. Statistics, so many ways. But we did that, and I'll close with one more academia story. So, so as some of you are aware, so to get your dissertation, you have a dissertation committee. To get your PhD, you have a committee. And so we needed 3 members. And so Neil Abel was one, and I got one other member from the Department of Criminology, Bruce Bullington. First I thought I'll go to the Department of Religion. And there was one lady professor who dealt with like Indian philosophy. And I talked to her to be one of the committee members. And she was saying, oh yes, so you've done this Vedic personality inventory. Yes, so you would need to read the writings of Vivekananda and things like that. And yes, I'm happy to support you, and you would need to do this and that. So when I walked out of her office, I knew I do not want her on my committee. And so, because you need one committee member who's not in the department. My department was social work. So I went to the Department of Criminology, and his name was Bruce Bullington. He's a top researcher in criminology. And he goes, yeah, I can help you with the statistics and the research methods and the research design. As far as all this Vedic stuff, I don't know anything about that. So you're the expert there. So I said, I want him on my committee. So that worked really well. And then the third member of my committee was in the social work department. His name was Walter Hudson. And you can look online. He was like the father. He's like the dean. He's like the dean of rigorous quantitative social science research, particularly in the area of social work. And his mentality, very atheistic, very non-spiritual. And we got along well. I invited him on my committee. And actually in the recent publication of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra dissertation book, Neil Abel in his endorsement said that David Wolf really set him up for rigorous testing because he invited Walter Hudson, who's like really non-theistic, just like he's very materialistic, not in the sense of like a gross sense enjoyer, but in the sense of nothing exists except for matter. That was his philosophy of life. We got along real well. Okay, so anyhow, so we go through the whole dissertation process, which I kind of sped through faster than practically anyone ever has, at least in that school. And it was very rigorous and intense. At the same time, I was directing the ISKCON Child Protection Office and had a full-time job with the state and was serving on different educational and grant boards, different things. And then I finished my dissertation and it was time for the oral examination, right? The oral examination, where they actually announce it to the whole school or the whole university, and then you're kind of challenged orally. I passed all my written and all of that. So there was like the oral exam, and then it's the last thing. It's not like you get your degree on that day, because then there's some other stuff to do, which takes time, but it's more mechanical. So this was the oral examination. And a few months before that, Walter Hudson, he contracted cancer. He had cancer, and this was again. So this was 1999, June 1999, and he was so sick that he couldn't come. He couldn't come.
That was the atheist, right?
Yeah, the atheist.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the atheist. He couldn't come to the oral examination, and so he came one phone conference. And phone conference 1990, it wasn't so developed. We definitely didn't have video, and so it was basically phone conference. And one thing, because they announced it, because the name of the dissertation was Effects of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on Stress, Depression, and the Three Gunas. And usually, like, no one comes to these, hardly anyone, but they had like a full house. It was like a very interesting title for the university. Students and other professors, that's it. He studied mantra. Now, a lot have studied mantra, but it was quite pioneering back in the 90s. So it was a full house, and Walter Hudson was there by phone conference, and it was, well, I passed with flying colors. It was very exciting, actually. They asked me questions, and then you could see that their questions became less and less about like the intellectual rigors of the dissertation process, and more like they were interested in bhakti. And they were interested in the difference between the soul, like they were personally interested. And anyhow, so the last thing that Walter Hudson did before he left his body, the last thing he did before he died was to sign off on passing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra dissertation. So, yeah. So there are definitely ways to integrate Krishna consciousness to integrate Bhakti Yoga in the university setting. And it requires quite some intention and spiritual strength. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, David. That was very inspiring and very affirming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna really pulled you out like a plow there.
Yeah, Krishna's mercy. Yeah, completely.
I am
Anandini.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate very much your class and how you brought it down to like speaking about rules and regulations in the scriptures, and then bringing it down to accept what supports us in Krishna consciousness and reject what doesn't support us. Because I see I look to scriptures for guidance, and I find things that if I want to apply that in my life, it just doesn't work. it's not practical at all. And so my endeavor is to understand what is the essence of that rule and regulation, and then to see what does that look like in my life. And just yesterday we were having a discussion, Paramatma and me, about, so the wife is submissive to the husband, what does that mean? And then we had a really funny situation that I wanted to speak about, like organizing our homeschooling, and he was tired and he said, no, I don't want to speak about it now. And I didn't insist. Okay, I was submissive. And then I realized in that moment that I have an appointment and it's 5 minutes for me to get there. And so, we laughed about this situation and said, that's an example of where it was really like important for my service and for his service that I was submissive to him. But then the discussion, like later on, after I had my appointment, the discussion went on, well, the same thing works the other way around. And really it's about expressing, for me to express and for him to express what supports us in our Krishna consciousness and what doesn't. And then it becomes quite simple. So I wanted to share that. And also the examples you shared, what came to my mind just recently, actually yesterday also. I had at the beginning of the year, I had some inspiration to connect with a local parenting organization that organizes courses for parents. And I connected with them, and then I asked them, well, like, what do you think is missing in all the courses for parents? Is there something? And they said, well, a lot of it is covered, like communication is covered. That's what I was thinking would be something I could offer. And then she said, well, what's missing is really like the topic of how to give children structure and protection and balance it out with giving them freedom. And that was so amazing, because that's what I understand is the essence of Srila Prabhupada's guidance about raising children, like to give protection and to encourage autonomy. And it was so, yeah, I just felt so guided in this. And had I followed like the instruction not to mix with non-devotees, or people who drink wine, because they like to drink wine. They speak about, oh yeah, when we finish our meeting, we'll go and drink wine. This wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, very, very inspiring sharing. Yeah, that you got, I'm going to call it super soul inspiration, guidance from Prabhupada to go into that sphere. That's, you know, that's your sphere, education, teachers, parenting, homeschooling, that sort of thing. And you were thinking, oh, maybe I can teach communication, but the group is, oh, that's kind of covered, you know, that's covered. And then what was uncovered is kind of like exactly the two integrated pillars that Prabhupada stresses about parenting. And so you could see you have that just like natural for you to offer that there, and in that way you get to bring in Prabhupada's guidance in this field of character-based, principle-based parenting. Right. So as we said, this is not an escapist philosophy. Let me go hide in a cave. I mean, for a few people, maybe that's there. But no, this is getting in the world. What do we get in the world? And then we just become all mixed up and covered over if we're not connected. But if we're connected, and we all know the process of connection, then we go and we can actually spiritualize the world. Very, very inspiring examples. Thank you. I think it's, we can end the class in discussion. Thank you all for your association. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.